They're not going to foul. The Heat will let it play out. It's over. At last, the long wait is over. After 47 years, the Denver Nuggets can finally call themselves NBA champions.
All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Basketball in the Mountains. This is your host, as always, Tyler King, for episode 52 here on the podcast. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in to today's show. Going to be another solo episode for me here today on the feed. Back talking NBA a little bit later in the week than we usually do, recording this on a Wednesday. But just took a couple of days off earlier this week after a pretty hectic weekend for me and hectic football season. So just kind of winding down a little bit here in December before we really get going with what I do at the Denver Gazette, in January, February, as college basketball season really heats up here in the area. College hockey as well, for those of you who follow along with all of my work at the Gazette, knows I cover DU hockey pretty heavily during the season as well. But back here today on the show. Before I get started, make sure to subscribe to the channel wherever you prefer to watch, listen, whatever, whether it's Spotify or Apple or over on my YouTube channel. All the subscribing, kind of leaving a 5-star review, leaving a comment, all that stuff is super appreciated by me and helps me grow the show, get it out there to more people, which, we've been doing a good job of that throughout the start of our first full season here on the show. But we'd love to keep building as we get towards March for the college basketball season, and then the playoffs for the NBA as well, because maybe we could have two playoff teams in the Mountain Time Zone here this year in the NBA, which we didn't have last year, which we'll get to on today's show, because I want to talk a little bit Nuggets, Suns, round up some college basketball news before we'll have a bigger college basketball show later in the week, hoping to do a show on the number one team, a specific show on the number one team in the country now, the Arizona Wildcats. We talked about them a little bit on the feed so far the last couple of weeks, but haven't really done a full deep dive on the Wildcats, and they are officially, like I said, the number one team in the country in the AP poll after Purdue lost pretty big at home the other day to Iowa State, and that just kind of opened up the door for Arizona, still unbeaten, to get that number one spot. Although, Michigan, with what they keep doing, they might steal it. Even though Arizona, they could keep winning, Michigan could steal it with how impressive they've been, and just dismantling a lot of really good teams so far in non-conference play. They've certainly probably been the most impressive team in the country, even though Arizona's got a great resume and is worthy of being the number one team in the country, as I've talked about here on the feed before. I think before when they were number two, I think I said they them and a couple other teams could have legitimate cases to be number one, and Arizona is for right now. But today we're going to talk a little bit about the NBA and the Nuggets, because it was only a week and a half ago the last time we did an episode with my Denver Gazette colleague, Vinny Benedetto, who covered the Nuggets for us. He came on the show, and it was after that 4 straight home loss for the Nuggets that they lost to the Mavericks last Monday night at home. Cooper flagged that 131-121 loss where they just did not play a ton of defense. But Vinny and I laid out the case that the sky wasn't falling, because they had won they'd won 6 or 7 straight road games at that point, and were going on a decent 4-game road trip here, 3 of which were on the East Coast, and they've still got one of those left to play. And what do you know? They've won their last 3 games all on the road. We talked about them being potentially all winnable games for the Nuggets. They take down the Pacers and Hornets to bookend it, and then with a really impressive win over the Hawks in the middle of it, which they were down 19, I think, at halftime last Friday night. And rallied in the second half. I think they scored 80 points in the second half. Jokic had 40 points, 9 rebounds. I don't know if he had a triple-double in that game, but Nuggets just had a great display in the second half there. But I really wanted to talk today about Jamal Murray and his all-star case, because last time we talked about the Nuggets with Vinny, we talked a little about the role guys, the guys that are stepping in for Aaron Gordon and Christian Brown, who remain out and probably will be through Christmas, maybe till probably looking at the first week or two of the new year before those guys get back, which obviously the Nuggets defense is what it is. They gave up 100, 120, 133, and 106 in those 3 games on the East Coast last Wednesday, Friday, and then on Sunday, the win over Charlotte. So the defense is still not good, but it is what you would expect, given that the Nuggets' top 2 defenders are out with Christian Brown and Aaron Gordon, and still will be for another couple weeks here. And Nikola Jokic, look, it hasn't been a great regular season for him defensively, but he's somehow having a better offensive season than he was last year. So just kind of unfathomable stuff he's doing. But the same goes for Jamal Murray, who's I think easily, it's without question now. It's December 10th right now. This is easily the best start to his 2A season in his NBA career. I mean, it's his age 28 season now. He's averaging a career high 25 points per game. He's taking more shots per game, but he's earned those because he's shooting career highs from 3, career highs from 2. He's getting more rebounds and going in transition and starting fast breaks and all that kind of stuff. He's up almost at nearly 7 assists per game, which is a career high for him. Turnovers are a little bit above his career average, but not terribly so that it's like it jumps out to you. Best true shooting percentage of his career, effective field goal rate. He's getting to the free throw line 4 times a game for the first time in his career. He's never been a big free throw guy, Jamal has, but that's even become a bigger part of his game now that teams are just really terrified of him as a jump shooter with what he's been doing, particularly in the game the other day. Which game is that? Oh, the Indiana game last Wednesday when he was 10 of 11 from 3, had 52 points. It was a plus 23, 19 to 25 from the field, over 75%. All that stuff is just ridiculous. And now I think he's got not just a real chance to be an all-star, because I'll run through that in a minute, because I think whenever you do the all-star conversation, you have to say who the person deserves to be in over or who they deserve to be in with, because I think I'm of the opinion that I think the all-star game is too small at this point. I think 12 per conference is just not where it needs to be. I think we should be at 15 all-stars for sure. And we'll have the weird format this year where it's the 24 all-stars, but we're having the 3 mini USA teams and then the 1 international team. And it's going to be 16 USA guys and 8, at least 16 USA guys and 8 international guys. And I think Adam Silver, if the initial 24 does not meet those numbers, he'll just keep adding guys until they get there and not like subtracting or whatever. So they'll likely will end up being 25 or maybe even 26 all-stars this year. Although when I did it, I'm going to run through the exercise in a second. When I did it, I did have 16 US guys and 8 international. So it kind of worked out. But not only does Jamal Murray have a legit all-star case, I think he's a legit he's probably going to end up having a legit all-NBA case if he continues playing at this pace, not just in terms of his production, but just the fact that he's playing all these games. Like it's been years and years now that we've had this issue with Jamal Murray at the start of a season where he's either working his way back from an injury or he had a weird summer where he didn't get the chance to work out all that much. He didn't come into camp in shape and was still playing his way into shape for the first 6, even 8 weeks of the season. But this is the healthiest Jamal Murray's ever been to start a season, at least since the early part of his career, since he became this level of Jamal Murray, say post-bubble Jamal Murray, when he kind of really had his ascendancy in the bubble in Orlando. This is the healthiest he's been, and it's the best he's looked physically too. I mean, that's the biggest reason why he's, I think, shooting a career high 55% from 2. The 3-point shooting is going to come and go. I think he's gotten better as a movement shooter and a shooter off the dribble throughout his career, and that's just kind of showcased this year. He's had some hot and cold games. Like I said, he'll go 10 for 11. But this past game against Charlotte, he was 2 for 9. I don't think they were necessarily bad shots either. It just kind of is what it is with Jamal. He's always kind of been a guy that can get hot and cold from 3 at times. But I just think he's at this point of a career where you just kind of really got to trust him as a shooter. And that's kind of, like I said, allowed him to get to the free throw line more and has allowed him to be, a better 2-point shooter because teams are really trying to run him off the 3-point line at times in these games. I think he has clearly established himself as an all-star in the Western Conference going into this year. I just, like I said, I wanted to run through the exercise. I did kind of a starting lineup for each the East and the West, and then 7 reserves, and then obviously the teams will get divvied up the way they were for whatever the weird format is they're doing this year. I don't know who asked for this, but it is what it is. But for the West, I did have the starting 5, whatever, if you want to call it, the 5 guys that are probably like the biggest locks at this point are I have Shea, Luka, Ant, Durant, and Jokic, obviously, as the first 5. And then if you're going to run through the other 7 in the Western Conference, I have, this is no particular order, by the way. There are certain guys that I think are more stronger cases than others, but this is the 7 that I came up with, and I'll run through some guys that I think that I just left off. Austin Reeves, who I just think has been incredible so far this year, and the Lakers have a record that justifies them getting 2 guys. Luka is obviously going to get in. Alperen Sengun, I think, easily deserves to get in. I don't have the any problem with the Rockets getting 2 guys. Chet, the Thunder need to get 2 guys, and it would be probably Jalen Williams, but he just came back. Maybe he'll get to a point where he's played just about every game and he's looked incredible up until February, and maybe that he does work his way into the conversation because he was an all-NBA guy last year. I think he's pretty clearly at his best, one of the 15 to 20 best guys in the league. So if he stays healthy and puts up numbers that we expect, maybe he works his way into the conversation. But for right now, I have Chet as the second Thunder player. Steph Curry, I think, obviously is a given. Victor Wembanyama. And then the last 2 guys I had were Jamal Murray and Devin Booker, who obviously we talk about a bunch about both these guys on the show, as they're both in the Mountain Time Zone. But I think Jamal's got a really, really strong case. Like I said, I ran through all the stats earlier, and I just think he's been one of the 4 or 5 best guards in the Western Conference so far this season. Like, I think that's the biggest reason why the Nuggets, aside from Nikola Jokic being superhuman and playing every single game, which obviously his track record as an Iron Man is not something that should be overlooked either. But I think the fact that Jamal's been so healthy has been the biggest key, has been one of the biggest reasons why they've been able to kind of sustain without Christian Brown and Aaron Gordon in the lineup for the last couple of weeks. Like I mentioned, still 17-6, third in the West. It's going to be, Vinny and I talked about this last week. It's going to be a dogfight, I think, to get to for that second seed, because no one's catching the Thunder at this point. It's going to be a dogfight to get the number 2 seed, because I think it's going to be important for all 3 of Denver, Houston, and the Lakers, the probably the 3 biggest contenders for that right now, because you're going to want to avoid the 4 seed and having to play likely Oklahoma City in the second round. It's not going to be easy playing against the other, whether it's if you're Denver, if you're playing against Houston or the Lakers, or vice versa. It's not going to be easy in the second round, regardless of who you play, likely. But you want to have home court, and you likely want to avoid OKC until the Western Conference Finals, if possible, because that gives them a chance to get a little bit worn down, and just to see kind of all the fluky stuff that can happen in the playoffs at times. But Jamal Murray is the biggest reason why the Nuggets are going to have a chance to do that going forward, because when they do get fully healthy again with Christian Brown and Aaron Gordon coming back, I do still think the Nuggets are pretty clearly the second best team, not just in the West, but in the NBA as a whole. And it's for a variety of reasons. But I think this leap that Jamal Murray has made here, you can't even call it a leap. It's just him being more consistently the guy that we've seen at times in the playoffs, even in the regular season too. I think it was January last year. He had an incredible month. So we've seen this version of Jamal Murray, and that's kind of been the one of the things that stuck with him throughout his career is that he's never made an all-star team. He's never been all NBA. He's never really had a case for it in any of these seasons because, like I said, since he became this different kind of level of a player in the bubble, he's either been injured or working his way back from an injury, or just not really in the perfect, physical condition to have the kind of season where you put up the numbers consistently for a couple months to get these kinds of recognition and awards. But I think right now, Jamal Murray is pretty clearly one of the 12 best players in the West and deserving of an all-star spot. The 3 guys I had right off in the West were Denny Avdia, Lauri Markkanen, who obviously plays for the Jazz, and I think he's had a great season offensively. Defensively, and the Jazz are So, although they're better than expected, I guess you could say. So maybe part of me with the NBA as well, I try to throw out the records when I'm a little bit when I'm talking about awards like this for the All-Star game and stuff like that. Although if you're a team like the Thunder who are that good, like I think you just have to get 2 guys in, and that's why I have SGA and Chet right now. And the other guy was James Harden, who even the Clippers are playing a little bit better lately after a kind of pretty disastrous start to the season. And James Harden's just put up great numbers as he always does in the regular season, so he's going to have a case at some point as well. I guess I should talk a little bit more with Devin Booker, but because I will talk about the Suns a little bit in a minute as well. But I just think Booker has put up pretty good numbers and has gotten back to the guy that we expected him to be, fringe MVP candidate, all NBA kind of guy that he wasn't last year. And he's been the poster child for this good vibe Suns team. Like, he's played really well. He's bought into the system with Jordan Ott. He's playing really hard. So we'll talk a little bit more about the Suns in a minute. But quickly running through the East, because I want to talk about the other 12 guys a little bit as well. The starting 5, again, if you will, I had Tyrese Maxey, Donovan Mitchell, Jaylen Brown, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and Jalen Duren as my first 5. Like, it's kind of weird. I just put a center in there for regardless. Like, you could put Cade in there if you want to play a little bit smaller, or even Jalen Brunson. I did have both those guys in the reserves, along with, again, no particular order, Norm Powell, Franz Wagner, Cat, and Brandon Ingram. So those are the guys that I had right now, with Scotty Barnes, Bam Adebayo, and Evan Mobley as the couple guys that the first three guys that I had in consideration there in East as well. And this will be in flux. We'll do more check-ins, probably one in January, and then one right before the All-Star game as well, kind of giving my picks for the All-Stars, and maybe have a guest on the show to give their picks as well. Because I do think it is a fun thing to talk about, even if All-Star Weekend isn't nearly the spectacle and the event that it used to be. But so I don't know if you're counting at home with those 24 guys that I had listed. I did have 16 U.S., 8 international, so it just kind of works out that way. But you can kind of swap guys in and out. Like I said, Scotty Barnes, Bam Adebayo, Evan Mobley, Denny Avdia, Laurie Markin, and James Harden, all those guys I think have pretty strong cases as well. So that'll do it for the Jamal Murray All-Star section of today's show, because I just did want to mention that at the top, because like, it's going 3-0 on the road there on the East Coast is important. They've got a game at San Antonio, at Sacramento tomorrow night, and then they've got a couple days off before a fun 4-game homestand, I should say. But their 3 games to start it are really what is intriguing, with Houston, Orlando, and then Houston again on next Saturday. So should be a fun week at Ball Arena if anybody's planning on going down to any of the games. I know I will be at a couple of them for sure. They also play Utah at the end of that as well, which I'll definitely be at that game to get a good look at the Jazz in person. But I also did want to mention the Suns on today's episode, because they have fallen back down to earth a little bit throughout these last couple games here. If you remember that November 6th to November 23rd, 2.5-ish week stretch where they went 8-1, they beat up on some bad teams during that stretch. I think the Clippers twice, New Orleans, Dallas, Indiana, some bad teams. The 2 biggest wins during that stretch were Minnesota at home and San Antonio at home. And then since then, they're 3-4, and they'll probably be 3-5 because I'm recording this before the Cup game tonight, where they play at Oklahoma City. Devin Booker is not going to play in that game. So assuming they're 3-5, the losses in that stretch are Houston twice, OKC, then it'll be twice if they lose again tonight, Denver. Although they do have some impressive wins over Minnesota again, which I'll talk about more specifically. And then they beat the Lakers last week, which was really impressive as well on the road. So it's still a really, really fun time to be a Suns fan, to be honest. Like, I don't know if you could have asked for anything more. They're 14-10. I think they're 8th or 9th in the West right now. I don't see a reason why this isn't sustainable, because like we've talked about on the podcast multiple times the last couple of weeks, like, they haven't ever really been fully healthy, except for like a 5-quarter stretch there when Jalen Green was on the floor. And I did see some of the beat writers, some encouraging videos today where Jalen's working out on the court, at least getting some running in. Looks like he's probably still going to be a couple weeks. I think it's been about a little over a month now since he re-aggravated that hamstring injury, and it felt like a 2-month kind of injury. So probably still 3-4 weeks away from him getting back on the court, but that's at least encouraging that there hasn't been a setback so far. And same goes for Devin Booker, who looked like he was not partaking in shoot-arounds earlier today, but was out there getting some shots up afterwards. So he's probably pretty close to return. But it really doesn't matter. My point is, it really doesn't matter who's on the floor for Phoenix, because they've just been fun to watch regardless. And that game the other night where they make the comeback and they had that great fourth quarter in Minnesota, they had the 108-105 win. Suns are 500 on the road, which is pretty a great sign for a younger, not fully young, but a newish team, still a bunch of new pieces trying to learn how to play together for a first-year head coach. If we're talking awards with Jamal Murray and All-Star, we should be talking Jordan Ott for Coach of the Year, because you just look at the 9 guys that the Suns played the other day in Minnesota, and that does not look like a team that should be competing with or beating a Minnesota team that is theoretically one of the 5 or 6 best teams in the West. Collin Gillespie, Grayson Allen, and Royce O'Neal played 33 minutes each, team high. Dylan Brooks played 31. Mark Williams played 29. He was great. He had 22 and 7. And off the bench, Oso Iguodala, Ryan Dunn, Jordan Goodwin, and Jamari Bouye were the 4 guys that came off the bench for Phoenix. Like, that's just not a rotation that really should be competing in the West. And they're fun to watch, and it doesn't feel improbable when you're watching these games either. They compete their butts off on the defensive end, and that is the hallmark of the Jordan Ott era. It's just they've washed the bad taste out of everyone's mouths from the last couple of years. With Coach Bud and all the other iterations of this Suns team since they were in the NBA Finals, and just have been going downhill since. this is a real trend up in the right direction. And it's still not great, the future with the draft capital and all of that. But I do think there are real building blocks here in terms of culture and having this becoming a place where not only does Devin Booker want to stick around, but that will attract future stars going forward as well. I mean, it's like I said, it's going to be nearly impossible to trade for some of the high end guys, but if in the coming summers and all that, if you're able to slowly add pieces in free agency and make moves on the margin, that's how you get back to being a consistent top 8 team. And you need one or two moves to break your way. Maybe it's the Jalen Green move, which obviously I've talked about multiple times that I wasn't a big fan of when it happened. But even then, still, they're not even getting any contribution from the rookies like Rasheer Fremling and Come On Watch, who guys I'm still high on, and I think will develop into real NBA players. And they've got younger guys that are growing as well, like Oso Ighodaro and Ryan Dunn. Collin Gillespie is still a young guy, which I want to talk about him because this is just an incredible, really third full season in the league for him. Obviously, he's 26 already, but what he's been able to do this season has just been awesome. He's averaging close to 14 points per game, and these last couple of games in particular, he's just been incredible. He had 19 points against Minnesota the other night. He had 28 on career high 8 threes against the Lakers last week. He had 24 in a loss in that 4-point loss to OKC at the end of November as well. So he's just been a revelation for this group. And it's not just him either. Like, I think another guy I want to talk about today is Jamari Bouye, who is a former University of San Francisco guy who played 5 years at one school, was an all WCC player, led them to the NCAA tournament in his fifth and final year in college basketball. Really hasn't played at all. Hasn't even played a ton in the G League throughout these last couple of years that he's been a pro. Barely played in the NBA. I think he's already getting close to surpassing his career or season high games, career high for games in a season with how much he's been able to play with Phoenix here this season. So it's just the fact that they're able to get production out of guys like that on a two-way, which, I mean, if he keeps playing like this, Jamari Bouye might be on a standard contract at some point. It's at some point in the near future, because he's been really good. I think he's second on the team in net rating for guys that have played a minimum of like 5 games this year. So he's been really, really good and helpful for them on both ends of the floor, particularly offensively, just kind of running the show as Collin Gillespie's backup, because Collin Gillespie is pretty clearly in the starting lineup now, which is good to see. And the Suns are just kind of where you would hope they would be. They're 12th overall, 12th in offense, 12th in defense. Like, they're kind of solid on both ends of the floor. They play really hard. And in today's NBA, that's enough to be, even if you don't have a great roster, that's enough to be an above average or a slightly above average squad. And I think that's pretty clearly where the Suns are at this point of the season. And all credit goes to Jordan Ott, who I'm making my claim now. I think he should be the front runner for NBA Coach of the Year. And if this continues, I think he'll have a good shot to really win it. My prediction for the season, I think I had David Adelman. And if the Nuggets would probably have to win closer to 60 games, which I don't think is out of the question with them being 17-6, but still a long way to go in that department. But Phoenix being 14-10 when their over/under for the season was 31.5 is just incredibly impressive. And they're, like I said, they're 7th in the West, a game behind Minnesota for 6th, a game and a half up on Golden State, 3 games up on Memphis. Like, I think they're pretty clearly above that group there, where it's Golden State, Memphis, Portland, Dallas, Utah, all right there behind them, 4 or 5 games behind them. And I think the Suns I don't think they're near the OKC, Lakers, Denver, Houston, San Antonio range, but they could be right there with Minnesota for sure. They've beaten them twice already this season. So I would still lean toward the Suns as a play-in team, but over somehow getting that 16 and getting automatic into the playoffs, into the 18 field in the West. But I think they're pretty clearly a play-in team and would have a good shot to advance when they get there. So all credit goes to Jordan Ott, like I said, and the guys obviously for playing hard and buying in, because this Suns team has just been really, really fun to watch. And I'm looking forward to shortly after getting done recording here, watching them play against OKC, even though they're going to be shorthanded once again, like I said. So that'll do it for the NBA portion of today's show. Just want to give a couple quick college takeaways. Didn't want to do too much because, like I said, we have our usual bigger college basketball show later in the week, hopefully focusing a little bit on Arizona. But I wanted to give a shout out to a couple of teams. Obviously, last night on Tuesday night, BYU pretty epic comeback, down by 22 points, I think, at one point during that game at Madison Square Garden against Clemson. Before the season, we talked about this as one of those key non-conference games where it's a long travel, it's a big national spotlight, it's on ESPN, all that kind of stuff. It's the Jimmy V Classic, a Clemson team that's been pretty good the last couple of years. It's pretty solid again this year, and BYU storms back on the back of AJ DeBansa, who had 28 points, 9 rebounds, 6 assists. Shot not over 50% from the field, got to the free throw line 10 times again, was just a menace. Didn't commit any fouls in the game, so wasn't in foul trouble like he's been in some of these other high-profile games. But obviously, Rob Wright III gets the epic game-winning three-pointer to go at the buzzer. He had 17 points on 14 shots, 5 rebounds, 4 assists. The fact that they're able to sustain a game where Richie Saunders goes 0 for 7 from 3 and 2-11 from 3 or from the field is a huge sign for this BYU team. And it's because they've got, one of the best, not just freshmen in the country, but players in the country with AJ DeBansa and how good he's been. And we're going to talk a lot about AJ throughout the year, not just from a BYU perspective, but from an NBA draft perspective as well. But wanted to give a shout out to BYU for that epic win on Tuesday night at Madison Square Garden. Also wanted to give a couple quick takeaways from CSU, the Rocky Mountain Showdown. Obviously, I was at that game. It was an epic win for Colorado State. Another one at home against the Rams, 91-86. Josh Pasquarelli, 8 of 10 from 3, 26 points, easily the MVP of the game. Even though Ram fans were not happy with me after the game on Twitter when I kind of, in the heat of the moment, right after the game, I said Buffs may have been the better team. And, this is based off of more points in the paint. They were deeper. They got more stops defensively. CSU just shot a ridiculous amount of threes and made a ridiculous amount of them, which after the game, I was thinking a little bit differently about it because of how angry Tad Boyle was with his group that they didn't follow the scouting report and the game plan and didn't run CSU off the 3-point line. They just kind of let them get off a lot of shots. Now, I still think CSU made a lot of tough shots in the game that if 2 of them don't go their way or 2 of them rim out, CU wins. But and I still think CU is deeper and ran better offense at times and had the best stretch of the game where I think it was a 21-4 run that they came back in the second half and then took the lead. I really thought from there they were going to roll and pull away a little bit in the game, but CSU had an answer every time from 3, unironically, whether it was Kyle Jorgensen or Pasquarelli or Brandon Recksteiner. I think those guys combined had 14 of the 18 threes that CSU made. Just an all-around really impressive win for the Rams, one they needed. They beat Dartmouth again last night in another non-conference game, one they had another take care of business kind of game, and now CU has a little bit of time off. They don't play until Saturday when they play UTSA up in Boulder. But I think that was it for kind of the games that I want to shout out. I should mention Utah State bounced back from their first loss of the season. They beat Charlotte on Sunday. Not a great team, but a true road game, and they won convincingly by 24 points. Mason Falslev had a really big game. Utah State lost at South Florida in a true road game last week, and now they bounced right back 8-1 on the season. Still look like the top team in the Mountain West with CSU right behind there. And Boise State is kind of battling their way back too. They had another nice true road win for them. Their first true road win of the season, I should say, but another nice victory for them. They're 6-3 now after a 77-68 win, at Butler at Hinkle Fieldhouse last week. They scored 44 points in the second half of that game. Pretty balanced effort, but Dylan Andrews had 20 points. Got to the free throw line 13 times. So shout out to Boise State as well for that impressive win. And we'll have plenty more college basketball talk on the show later this week. So that'll do it for today's episode of Basketball in the Mountains. Like I said at the top, make sure to subscribe wherever you prefer to watch or listen, Spotify, Apple, over on YouTube. Leave a comment, like the video. Leave us a 5-star rating on Spotify in particular. All that stuff is really helpful and helps me grow the show. And I appreciate it. Appreciate it immensely. So thanks everybody again for watching or listening to wherever you prefer to consume the episodes. I appreciate it one way or the other. And have a good week and enjoy the weekend of basketball.